Hi there. So now we've learned a lot of the structural stuff, how to cite and measure, how to use planar analysis, how to use straight line approach, how to block in, all of that stuff. And all that it was meant to help us know how to draw the figure more accurately, to build the mechanics of a figure on the page. Um, it makes sense now to take it further, which means talking about value, shading, light and dark, rounding out the volumetric forms that we've learned how to draw accurately so that they feel more naturalistic and real. So this first one is going to be Vine charcoal. It's my favorite medium to draw with, mostly because it's really malleable. You can push it around, you can erase it, um, you can lay it down, pick it back up almost completely, and so you can do quite a bit with it. It's the closest thing to paint, really, as far as a drawing medium goes, at least in my mind. I chose this, excuse me, image of Megan primarily because of the shadows and lights. I mean, if I squint my eyes and look at this, it's really just a collection of light and dark shapes, and that's what I'm interested in. So when you're trying to pick your photo to work from for this, really pay attention to the light and dark patterns, not just in the photo, but on the figure as well. You want some shadows and contrast and some highlights and some midtones all inside the figure as well as outside. And I know quite a few of those photos of Megan, the photographer did everything he could to actually minimize the values on her body, but heighten the contrast between her and her environment. And those, I mean, they would make for fine drawings too, but if we really want to learn about light and shadow on the figure, we've got to approach it with actual light and shadow on the figure. That makes sense, yeah? So I've taped off my paper because I'm going to get Vine charcoal all over the place, and I want to keep that crisp, clean edge to my drawing. So it's just a professional practice type of thing. You don't have to do this, but it does clearly define my picture plane, where my image is going to be. One of the advantages of working from photos is photos are already fit within a picture plane. It's a certain width and a certain height. And so if you're clever about this, you can make your dimensions here match that, at least the ratio. For example, my piece of paper, the picture plane I've created with the tape is 2 times larger than this shape over here. So I'm going to take advantage of that as I work on the drawing. One of the things you'll see is I can see how close to the corner her shoulder breaks the edge, how close her elbow comes to the edge, where, if this is halfway up the image, how close her knee is to that as it disappears. Same thing over here. So I can use those 4 edges as, think about it, some of my vertical and horizontal markers in the drawing, and make comparisons that way as I go. I'm going to work on this in a much looser fashion than what we've been doing. So I will be doing some citing and measuring. I will be doing some straight line construction, but I'm going to do it in a much quicker and more loose and organic fashion than kind of that step by step that we've been going through. This is more natural to how you draw and how you use all of those tools together. So let's get started. I do want to look for the biggest things that are going to be happening throughout the drawing. So I start with a quick gestural feel of all the pieces, and I generally work fairly straight line, although as you can see there's some curves happening in here. I'm just trying to place the figure on the page. Not too concerned yet with accuracy, so I'll build towards that as I go. So, yeah, it looks like a big abstract collection of lines. They are all informed on the things that I'm seeing, but I'm keeping it really loose and gestural for now. I want to be able to move all these things around pretty easily as I go. So I make more and more passes, I'm going to get more and more specific, and so make changes to these first guesses that I made. I'm also moving all over the place. So I have, just like always, I've got all of the players on the field. So I can make those comparisons more meaningful. The biggest bad habit you all seem to have is that you try to draw from her head first, get that right, and then extend out into the drawing because you want it to look right from the get-go. And all that does is mess you up. The much better way to do this is to get everything happening all over the place, even if it's all abstract and feels wrong. So it's way easier to move things around now than if I have a bunch of detail in here already. The things I'm using today: vine charcoal, paper, I've got my chamois cloth, I've got my kneaded eraser, I've got a vinyl eraser out. These lines start getting too much, too many. I like to draw with the eraser too. You can see already as I start to sneak up on being more specific. Oh yeah. I almost naturally just start measuring things. And what you're seeing me do mostly is just checking the angles and the directions of things. So I'm lining up with her, lining up with the drawing. I am looking at some of her structure. If I see part of the skeleton sticking out, affecting the skin, I make an adjustment, or I make a note of it. I shouldn't say an adjustment. I'm noticing where those things are happening. So I'm trying to start thinking about spaces. The space from the armpit to her chin. It's very similar to the space from her chin to her hair. So I'm already starting to kind of calculate those things, making those comparisons. Our brain knows all the pieces. We just spent a week learning all the names of all the pieces of a figure. And it wants to try and see everything all at once. And it wants to fill in blanks for us, show us things that we can't actually see. And that's a bit of a problem, because it means all this is going to have to move. It means we're letting our brain tell us what to draw instead of our eyes. We can't, I shouldn't say we can't, but when we're drawing from life, we only want to draw very specifically what we're seeing. And if it looks a little funky and weird, well, that's probably actually what it looks like. And so we have to let that happen. It's more important to draw it the way it looks than it is to try and think your way through it and let your brain say it knows how it should look. It's always a recipe for disaster. So again, lots of comparing. What is the negative space in this part? Much better. I didn't have enough space for all the pieces to fit in there. I didn't have enough space for my negative shape. Didn't have enough space for the thickness of the arm. Didn't have enough space for the length and direction of the hip coming away. The breast comes below where that exits the body. And I didn't have enough length down here. And so what helped me figure all that out was I noticed the vertical from the chin coming down and really running into this corner right here. I can even push it a little further. That gave me the space I was looking for. So I'm trying to solve this problem, but I need to be looking at all these other pieces and a relationship to it, or else anything I'm guessing at in here is, yeah, it's a guess. So basic, quick layout of everything. 10, 15 minutes. If we were in class, I'd tell you, take this first 20-minute pose and just establish this and get as far as you can with this. And then before you move into anything with value, just establish the pose on the page and spend a lot of time making those corrections early on. The sooner you figure out that you need to make the corrections and the sooner you actually act on that, the better off you are, because you haven't wasted a bunch of time with detail yet. It's a lot harder to move details around than it is these quick scribbly marks. So what's the key? Keep it nice and loose in the beginning. Don't try to solve everything. And let it look weird. Let it look a little abstract. It's all gonna fit together later as you keep making adjustments. So that's what your goal is in this first section, is just establish on the page the majority of what you need. Whether it's correct or not doesn't matter all that much, but do make some corrections as you go. Get it close is what you're after. And then we'll make big changes from here.